good day of thinking, which is basically like a miracle for me. Good day of workouts, partner workout at the affiliate. AMRAP 20 minutes, my favorite workout in the world. AMRAP 20 minutes with a partner, 10 sumo deadlift high pulls, light ones, 75 pounds, 10 wall ball shots to a high target, 11-foot target, which I think is felt more interesting than always just defaulting to the heavier ball. So partner 1 does 10 and 10, taps out. Partner 2 does 10 and 10, taps out. And you just keep rotating like that. A lot of rounds, high intensity, quick rounds, 40 seconds or so. Trying to increase cycle time on those two movements is fun, especially the sumo deadlift high pull. Fun movement to do fast, fun movement to say fast, sumo deadlift high pull. And just jackhammer that thing into the ground and bounce it up to your clavicle. That's how you're supposed to do it, right? Not saying all of them looked like that, but part of me wanted to make them all look like that. Good vibe in the gym, a lot going on, good family stuff. Looks like people are getting after it. It was fun. Snowy day. And then if you have been following along, we're going to hit the day 7, I believe, of gratitude practice. And if you haven't, a little challenge, not really a challenge, a little exercise, 31 days of each day. Just write down on a piece of paper, any piece of paper, Post-it note, napkin, doesn't matter, back of a receipt, could be a nice journal. But you're just going to write down one thing per day that you're grateful for. We're not going to turn this into like crazy. If you want to, you can. I'm not going to hold you back. But for me, it's not like every day doesn't have to be this extreme soul-searching gratitude practice. Also, trying not to make it like wildly superficial every day. But today's felt a little bit simpler, but also has some good roots to it. Love a good cold glass of water when you wake up in the middle of the night. That's an underrated thing, I think. But dogs were being kind of annoying last night, woke me up, but I had a cold glass of water sitting there and forgot that I did. And kind of parched, drank that. It just hits just right. So good. I grew up with well water too, which maybe explains a lot about me. And man, you don't think water is delicious. Maybe that's just how lame I am, but a good cold glass of water is the best. It's not lame because all those coffee dweebs out there always talk about water stuff. How hard is the water? How soft is the water? I have the hardest Sigma water, but I vividly remember moving to the city and like drinking city water, and it tastes noticeably different than the water I grew up with, and I did not like it. So going back to where I grew up to have that well water is still not always, and was a treat, and it's still. So simple one, just grateful for that. So if you're following along, keep hitting those gratitudes. Like I said, maybe you're just shouting it out as you're listening. Try to write it down on a piece of paper. Day 7, if you're joining just now, only 24 days left. So we're moving through that. And today, last couple of days, been spending a lot of time kind of hovering around a few topics. And one of them was, I noticed this, and something that reminded me of it too was when it comes to sports, I am about I am not knowledgeable at all. Zero. Probably like my worst, if I was like my worst skill. But I always, on the internets, I see the GOAT arguments, which I think sometimes are just kind of like fun to have. I'm always impressed by people who know a lot about sports, just the amount of stats knowledge they have and references and keeping all the players' names in their brains. It's a pretty impressive thing to me. I've had the pleasure in the past through CrossFit to work with people who were color commentators and play-by-play commentators for college sports and other sports, but they would also, do that for CrossFit. And man, the stats they can remember and the stories about players they remember and the names and the prep that goes into it, it's a fucking amazing skill. And their passion for it is so cool. For a while, I was when I was finishing up law school, I listened. I got really addicted to listening to hockey on the radio. I know, how old am I? But the reason I liked it so much is because there was just such an art to it, and it was so vivid when I would listen to it. I was just impressed by it. I don't know. I think about that once in a while. It was so cool. But anyway, really awesome skill. Not a skill I have, and definitely not it's not a huge interest of mine, but the greatest of all time arguments are always cool. I saw one, one of the most common ones today, and it was like a checklist. LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. This one comes up all of the time. And for me, MJ is the guy. That's guy, I was born in 86, so I caught the tail end of all that greatness. I had a cousin who was like obsessed, so I inherited some of that from her. And just that era and the environment of a lot of the basketball players then in the NBA at that time. I mean, it's just in my mind, really special place, huge part of my childhood. And I'm sure basketball is like that now for someone who is my age growing up in it. And the GOATs that we have in mind probably won't be remembered in another decade or so, or it will be just sort of like footnotes. And I'm saying that, and someone's like, "You're out of your mind. I can't believe you'd ever say that." That's okay. You're all right. The words didn't hurt you. But the reason I bring this up is, trying to be positive generally. This one's a little cynical. I sometimes wonder if we bring up the GOAT arguments or, dig our heels in on the GOAT arguments just because we're trying to validate something about ourselves. I'm trying to just make my life growing up more important because I was able to watch Jordan play, and people now are only able to watch LeBron James play. And so my growing up, my childhood was more important, more valid. I wonder if we're hitching our wagon to that. I'm sure that happens once in a while. I see that with other things too. But also I don't want to take away just the pure fun of it. Having arguments over stats and what if arguments. Arguing over things you can only imagine, kind of fun. Really fun. But the reason that stuck out to me today, because one topic that's been kind of floating around in my head over the last couple of days has been being happy versus being right. And it's important for me to share that I'm just so happy that I'm always so damn right, undefeated. No, that's actually called being delusional. And I'm sure there's someone out there being like, I'm right. Oh, I am right all the time. And very often. That is why I'm so happy. Actually sounds like almost the voice that I would make for my dog, which is terrifying. But being right versus being happy. And this is something I've learned so much about in the last, I would say, 10 years of my life, when I've worked harder to have more meaningful, deeper, thorough, growing, nurtured relationships with other people, especially with Cassandra. And especially trying to be like a better teammate and develop in teams and that kind of stuff and partnerships. Man, I think you have to really pay attention to this one, because I think you don't want to sell yourself short. You don't always want to cut yourself down just so somebody else doesn't have to have that feeling. That's not what I'm trying to say. That's not what I think the difference between being right and happy is. And happy might not be the right term, but what I mean is like you're going out of your way to prove some point that in a lot of cases is some really minor marginalized point that if you are right, it doesn't actually advance the storyline. It doesn't get you and the person that you're arguing with to move anywhere new. You just get the little tiny dopamine hit of knowing, well, I was right on this one point that in reality doesn't fucking matter. It's easy to get addicted to that. It's really easy to get addicted to that. And I think one of the other things that can happen is when you get addicted to that that mindset and that habit, and this is something we've talked about before, you start believing your own BS, easier and easier for you to do that. And you stop fact checking your own worldview. You stop intaking new information successfully. I think that's one of the dangers of that. Like I said, I don't know if the opposite of that is like the being happy, but I can think of so many moments, work is Work's a great one for this. Maybe it's like your team's working on a big project and there's a lot of moving parts. And if there's a lot of moving parts, there are going to be things that are standout awesome and things that are not so awesome. And you're the person who's like, well, we're going to lose this one tiny little thing. And I just want everybody to know that. Like that guy's the worst. Don't be that guy. And you can also, I'm sure anybody who is I would say anybody trying to have a serious relationship or grow a deeper partnership with another individual person has a million examples of this. You're getting into a discussion, an argument, and you're just holding on to this one tiny little point. It's just really important that I drive this point across. It just holds up the whole, resolution of the entire argument. But don't worry, you got that one thing right. Yeah, you got to check yourself on that. I try so hard to think about when I'm debating or seriously debating or arguing or having an in-depth conversation of like, hey, life moves on. So part of this is to like keep things moving toward resolution. And is me being obsessed with getting this one thing right? Is this more important than what's on the other side of this thing? So I've been thinking about that a ton lately. And something else that made me think about it is I saw this Instagram post the other day, and the post essentially was kind of hinting at this whole idea that it's hard for us to even accurately assess ourselves in many cases. And part of that is just due to our busy lives. And, it's due to a bias of because it happens in our life or within us, we think we know a lot about it, even if we haven't accurately assessed it or looked at it. But the point of it for me was if we are someone who's always just focused on like getting these small details right, doesn't matter what the outcome is, I just need to be right about this thing, and that is the most important thing in this argument or this relationship or this debate. It's hard for us, I think, to have a really accurate perspective of the world around us and know ourselves. And the other thing is, and we've talked about this a ton before, it's okay to be wrong. You will learn something or give yourself a better opportunity to learn if you are wrong. If you have a really big issue and you're just focused on a couple small points of it being right, and that's the crux of it for you, and you get those, let's say you get those right, and then at that point, you just lose everything else about the issue. Like, let some of that stuff go. What is really on the other side of this? Is it about being right? Or is it about having some better outcome for you and the persons that you're having this debate with? I just thought that was really interesting. Been thinking about that a lot lately, so we're a little over time. It's okay. We'll get back on track tomorrow. Gratitude Day 7 in the bag. And more tomorrow.